Is there something you wish you had known earlier? Over the past few weeks, I asked this question to some greatly smart people I know. My friend, a very successful entrepreneur, named a dozen programs that help you fund and build your startup that he missed out on when building his first venture. My uncle, a researcher, went on about international training opportunities that he wasn't aware of as a young scientist. And the grandest of them all, my grandma talked for 40 minutes about a new bakery down the street that she discovered last week. These are mostly important things to know. Great things to know, right? I wish I knew about them 5 years ago. And, I knew all these people back then, but they never told me about any of this. You'd say I could have just asked, but it's impossible to ask questions about things you do not know exist. I believe we are all losing out because of it. It's so rare to get such practical advice from people ahead of us in their careers. And it's so true for us, young people, who are in a very dynamic time of our lives, constantly changing schools, starting our first jobs, new friends, new activities, always new responsibilities. It's so hard to get a good grasp of how to make the most out of our current situation. I'm confident it's so familiar to all of you, and I bet if you are again a student or again a teenager, you do things at least a bit differently. I'm only 23, and you wouldn't believe how many times I've heard it already among my friends. Let me tell you about one of the brightest people I know, Magda. She comes from a small village in southern Poland, where she got her pre-university education. Top of her class, always perfect grades. She followed her friends to a local university, where she does extremely well academically, with a head full of amazing ideas for research. However, she struggles to find any funding or fellowships to continue her career. She's a brilliant student with no track record. There were science competitions she could have started with back in high school. Opportunities to increase her profile, both domestically and abroad, while studying. But she never took chance with any of those, as there was no one to tell her that she should. On the other hand, there's my friend Ada. As she says herself, there's nothing remarkable about her. She would spend most of her childhood skateboarding and would barely pass her math exams. However, when she was in 6th grade, a school alum visited her class and talked about universities abroad. That day she got interested. She researched high schools and found one that offered initial baccalaureate. Then she discovered online courses that helped her apply to foreign universities. One thing led to another, and she's now completing her PhD in physics at Cambridge. Access to information and guidance can make a difference between untapped potential and extraordinary success. It's often the fact of being pointed to the right opportunity at the right time that shapes one's path. For me, this is personal. I was always quite an average student. I felt, I get good grades and would study at a nice university, maybe like in Łódź or in Warsaw. Things like, for example, studying abroad has always felt crazily unimaginable. I believed you needed like $500,000 saved for tuition and should have started back in primary school preparing for your SATs. And I can already see some of you being like, you don't? I thought the same, but then something very peculiar happened. Someone I randomly met at a party told me that I could study in most European countries with Polish matura, with no money for tuition, and even get my expenses covered with a scholarship or a loan easily. It was like a month before the deadlines. I sat down, wrote my application, and as you might expect, I got in. The story would like a good arc without it. I got into London School of Economics, and it changed my life, opened further opportunities I would never otherwise have. If it wasn't for that one person, that one night 5 years ago, I wouldn't be building my own social venture. I probably wouldn't be speaking to you today about it. Of course, information is not everything, but without information, your chances come down to 0. And you can probably see where this is going. During my studies, I met people, usually from Warsaw, from the 5-10 top high schools in Poland, for whom this was no new perspective. People who have already done, to me back then, unimaginable things in high school, run conferences for hundreds of people, hosted music festivals, launched successful startups, charities, Model United Nations, Youth European Parliament, international debating, published research as a high schooler, you name it. Initiatives that developed them immensely and led almost universally everyone in their class to top universities, amazing further prospects, and great careers. Initiatives that I, frankly, have never even heard of growing up in Łódź, which is not that small of a city, right? I talk to my friends around Poland, in other towns, it's the same perspective. They never once heard you could do such things as a high schooler, let alone could imagine doing that. It turns out we are not alone in this. As the latest study by CEBOS indicates, 73% of high schoolers never join an organization, any society, not even a sports club or an informal project group. They never engage in anything extracurricular. As you all probably know, students in schools are told to focus on their exams and their grades. They are systematically discouraged from taking additional responsibility. They are not to miss classes or, God forbid, homework while doing something outside of school. But once you graduate university, your results suddenly don't matter. Now it's skills and experience, but only a few who knew to build projects, train their soft skills, grow their network while still in education have this quintessential experience. The 73% are left behind. But there is a bright side to it. It turns out often most people need is being pointed to the right opportunity. This is basically what we started doing with a group of friends, which now turned into a full-on NGO. We go around the country, do workshops at schools, and basically tell students, tell teenagers, things we would love to hear when we were their age. If they're interested, we give our contact details and mentor them into making the most out of this knowledge. And it works. We now have hundreds of students that attended our workshops and started taking advantage of opportunities around them. So now let me ask you this. Close your eyes and think about what you are doing right now. Maybe you're a student, maybe you have a career. Now try remember when you were starting this period in your life. Think what you would love to have someone tell you that you maybe know now but wasn't aware of back then. And this is my challenge to you. Share it with someone you believe can use this knowledge. Imagine empowering them to do something they would not come up with themselves. And now imagine them paying it forward to another person. And again, and so forth. This is what education should be about. Most scholarships or mentorship programs take on 10 or 20 students and choose them based on past achievement. This supports a few who are already accomplished, creating those amazing stories of super successful individuals that we love to hear about. But the goal should be to take the 73% and give them a shot at being at the top. I don't need to convince you that you can benefit from hearing advice you literally chose to spend a day listening to a series of TEDx talks. But I want you all to be aware that with what you already know, you can benefit someone else. Your experience, regardless of the field, can be a missing piece in someone else's puzzle. It's only up to you whether you share it with someone. I can tell you I have so much fun doing that. I invite you to have that fun too. You'll still enjoy it. And I hope, once you do that, you'll only wish that you had known that earlier. Thank you.